automation and what we do to maintain an evergreen user experience. I also have 15 minutes. And for those of you who know me, you'll know that I can talk for England. So I'm going to have to rush through this. Hopefully everyone's not too sleepy by this stage. I know it's a long day, and thank you all for staying. So first of all, what's the big issue with UX and trying to maintain it? Well, at the moment, I actually have a slightly bigger issue, and that's that my dog just had puppies. And if anyone's interested in buying a puppy, I haven't got rid of them all yet. They're ready to go in 2 weeks. They're adorable. You can see the look of total regret on my actual dog's face. She thought it would be fun. However, she now gets locked in a cage with 6 children. Who'd have thought that wouldn't be a good time? So anyway, let's talk on some of the driving things that are actually dealing with that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to focus in on a few wide things that are affecting the industry and why some of the things that I'm talking about are problems that are not something that you can fix overnight. And one of the things that we're seeing now, if you look at companies, their second biggest cost is cloud. Right? So you look at their cost, they have staff, then cloud. Some of them it's the other way around, but those are the 2 big costs. Right? Those are the 2 big numbers that you see. And generally, compute is you pour more money at it, it goes faster, right? It's quite simple. It's a fairly simple calculation. Not always, it's not always that linear. Sometimes you throw a lot of money at it and it doesn't go much faster. But then there's also some other factors that are affecting this. I might be about to pick on Citrix a little bit, who are still my favorite vendor of VDI, but at the same time are also hiking prices left, right, and center. So first of all, we're seeing things like redundancies at Microsoft, we're seeing redundancies at Citrix, redundancies at VMware. Okay, these are huge. Like if you look at the account list, in Brazil as an example, one of the markets that we work in quite heavily, we saw that they have 30 managed accounts in the entire of Brazil now. Okay, Brazil's like not a small place, right? Brazil's massive. 30 managed accounts, right? UKI is similar for these guys, and I'm using Citrix because that's the ones that I've got insider knowledge on, right? But a lot of organizations are getting a lot less support from these organizations than they used to. We're also seeing things like increases in cloud cost. Like, I mean, people should have really expected this one from Microsoft, right? But do you know what's really scary is if you, can everyone hear me? For the audio, okay, no worries. So the increase in cloud costs that we've seen, 14%. Now, everyone know what a Mac agreement is? Everyone's seen some of those, okay, where people prepay Azure credit. A lot of companies aren't spending it. I know because I've spoken to Microsoft about it. I've spoken to other vendors who are trying to get people to spend it. VMware are trying to do Horizon on AVD because it's being pushed by Microsoft because they're trying to get people to spend these Mac agreements. Now, I spoke to an organization not so long ago. They had 100 million in a Mac agreement and they'd spent 4 and they were coming up for renewal. Now, this is pervasive across organizations, right? If you think that Microsoft are going to let that revenue slide and disappear, you're wrong. It's going to be fixed with licensing changes, cloud price hikes, so on and so forth. There is no way that they can just let that amount of revenue disappear overnight, right? Now, some of that will come from new products and services in the form of OpenAI, but it is a gaping hole in their P&L that people are going to have to pay to fix for, and that's the reality of it. The other side of it is if we look at things like the VMware, if you look at their business model for Q1 last year, okay? So Q1 last year, they did, I think it was 3 billion in revenue and 1 billion total cost of sales. So the business model that they did when they got taken over by Tom Crouch was quite simple. You remove 90% of your total cost of sale and you keep your top 10% of your accounts, which is where 90% of your revenue comes from. All make sense? All right, actually, you just kind of squeeze it, right? Not an ideal situation. Citrix have now got Tom Krause at the helm. All right, I'm Citrix through and through. If you cut me, I'll bleed Citrix. But I've actually just seen some of the recent price hikes from the customer end, and they are astronomical. All right, some of the price hikes we're seeing coming out of Citrix. If you ask me who's the best VDI broker today, and we've got Parallels in the room, we've got VMware, we've got Citrix in the room as well. All right, it's Citrix, right? In my opinion, if you're asking my opinion, I used to work for them. Might be a tiny bit biased. But at the same time, their prices are no longer justifying the cost of that software. Now we're in such a competitive market. We have AVD, we have Parallels up and coming. Even Horizon, we've actually seen Horizon under the MSP market and models. I'm actually seeing price drops from them. Okay, we saw a price decrease because they know this is coming and they can see these things happening in the market. So we're seeing price increases with less support. We're seeing increases in cloud costs. There's a looming thing happening in the market here, which is around cost increases. Now, this also extends even further. So What we're seeing today is we're seeing things like inflation and interest rises, right? We're not in a nice economic situation at the moment. Everyone's aware of this. Everyone knows what's going on in the world. Seeing energy prices are very, very unstable, all right? So you're looking at energy prices and you're saying, actually, my colo's gone through the roof or something like that. All of these costs are spiraling. At the same time, supply chain delays, major cloud provider price increases, and major vendor redundancies as well. So less support, more costs, people trying to maintain money that they shouldn't be trying to maintain money. And I actually think some of these vendors, and this is across the industry, for a lot of vendors that I'm speaking about here, and this is personal opinion, some of this, so please distance this from Flexxible, is actually, I said to someone about this earlier, it's like Icarus, flew a bit too close to the sun, right? If people start to dislike these vendors and the mood changes, things are going to change in the market, all right? And in actual fact, that's what we're here to try and help people. Well, actually, if you need to change vendor, if you need to change platform, what if you need to switch different tools in or out? How can we give people the flexibility and the capability to be able to do that easily and quickly? The other thing that we're starting to see is things like a lack of trust in vendors. Okay, so I'm going to tell a story. This is Citrix because there's a recent story with a customer that I've just spoken to. They did a Citrix cloud transition 3 years ago. They've just got their renewal. It's gone up 38%. Okay, that's actually quite a mild case from some of the other ones I've heard. Ones that they've gone up like 5x. All right, 38%, all right, is not a small amount of money for an organization to suddenly front up. What have they probably done? They've probably done year-on-year 5 or 10% increases in their budget or something like that, and it's gone up 38%. All right, that is massive for companies to deal with out of the blue. The other thing is that the lack of agility in these organizations is starting to lead to change paralysis. It's so difficult to move from one vendor to another or to move from one platform to another. We've spent a lot of time today talking about apps. We've talked about SCCM. We've talked about Config Manager. There's awesome vendors like Liquid, Remo in the room, and Liquidware as well. All of these guys who deal in that space, okay, and help solve that problem. But the reality is when you go in with a vendor, you invest in that vendor and you spend time with them, okay? You work with that solution. And a lot of the big vendors are the ones that are starting to lose that trust. It's not the little guys who are starting to lose that trust, okay? Not calling all the other vendors here little, but you know what I mean? They're not the behemoths that are Microsoft. The reality that we're starting to see, or I'm starting to hear, is a lot of people are moving to the cloud. They're moving to SaaS services and things like that. And actually, the ROI for cloud adoption from EUC isn't actually what they thought it was, because actually these costs keep slowly sneaking up, and actually what they thought they could get, they actually can't get. I was speaking to a customer recently who was a customer of mine at Citrix, who's now a partner that we work with. It's their customer. They went all in Azure and Citrix. And then they got the bill. And 6 months later, they went, sod this, and they've put 5 servers in a data center, okay? Big, powerful servers, and they now run 2,000 users from that data center at a fifth of the cost, all right? A fifth of the cost of cloud, all right? But the reality is they work long hours, they need powerful machines, fifth of the cost, all right? That is crazy. That's crazy, crazy costs. There's a great blog series at the moment by David Hanneman or something like that, who's the founder of Basecamp and Cloud9. He's DHH on Twitter. He's got an awesome blog series about coming off AWS. And what I really like about it is I'm not anti-cloud, I'm cloud appropriate, which is when you need flexibility and you need growth and you need burst, it's the place to go. But the reality is that hardware's way cheaper to buy and put in a data center if you want to manage it. Or you can go with a private cloud. Quiet plug here for someone like Flexxible to be able to step in and do that piece as well. That is an option that we have. But he talks about how when they're growing the company, they relied on cloud. It was essential. They had to have it to be able to grow the company because they didn't know what their use was. Now, 5 years later or 10 years later, they have 300,000 monthly users. They bought some tin, and it looks like they're going to save 20 million over 5 years. Yet again, something like their bills are going down 80% or something like that. It's a crazy amount of money. And they're getting much better performance when they actually looked at the stats. Significantly better performance for their end users by having their own kit. And this sort of starts to spill some of that illusion of some of the things that people are being told. And I think people are starting to get a bit fed up with some of the, I'm going to call it out here, fake ROI and TCO models, right? Every single software vendor wants to sell you something that's going to save you X amount of millions of pounds and things like that. And I think people are just losing touch with it. I think people don't believe it. Does anyone believe it when they see a TCO or ROI calculator from a vendor anymore? Because anyone not believe it? Can I have a show of hands? Just check everyone's still awake. Right, so apparently James loves them. James didn't move. Right, he's probably got his own at home and he's probably trying to make sure I don't ruin it for him. Okay, but that's the reality. No one believes them anymore. And the other thing is, at the moment, one of the things that we're seeing is cost consistency is key. All right, when you get a bill out of the blue for something that you're not expecting, actually you just want the same bill next month as you had last month. And that is the case when we see things like economic downturn. So what do we believe and why am I here and why is this a sponsor session and why have I gone completely off on a rant about cloud vendors and redundancies and things like that? Okay, because that's kind of what I'm doing, because that's what I'm interested in and what I thought you guys might find a little bit more interesting than me just showing you slides about our product, all right, to start up. The reality is that customers need automation to remain competitive because that is the only way that they can be multi-cloud or multi-vendor or multi-broker. And that customers need a toolbox for end-user computing that covers everything from physical devices to virtual devices across their entire estate. So in my mind, they need to be flexible. Please excuse the pun. All right, we do flexible with 2 X's. Yeah, you get it? Cool. Yeah, can I have that one? Where's Guy Leach? Awesome. So when we talk about our ecosystem as flexible and what we do and who we are, right? So we support all the different client operating systems. We support every single hypervisor. We support all of the cloud platforms. And we also support all of the brokers as well. Okay, so when we talk about our technology, if a customer wants to use Parallels or they want to use VMware or they want to use Citrix, it's really simple for us. The other thing is that everything that we do is automated. So we are a hybrid of tools and services that we deliver to our customer to make any broker or technology into a desktop as a service like experience. So if you get a nasty renewal from Citrix and you decide it's not worth it, okay, you could flip over to something like Parallels and you could do it within a few days. All right. The reality is if you're doing high graphics or anything high latency, you're going to have to stick with Citrix because the Parallels broker won't stick up to something like that. But on the flip side of that, having that flexibility allows you to make decisions. It stops you from being pigeonholed by vendors. You can run our technology on your own hardware, on our hardware in your data center, on public cloud, or on private cloud. And we don't care where you run it, we don't care which options, because what we're looking to do is use our automation to provide you the capability to be flexible. And all of these pieces are the new reality of end-user computing. And our goal here is to help people navigate it and to help people make those decisions and help guide people. You're currently running Citrix, want to test Parallels, want to test VMware, no problem. Okay, we've got fully automated deployments. You can literally click out an environment in a couple of clicks, test it, see if it's better, see if it's worse. You can have a look at the cost and you can make an informed decision really, really fast. And that's what it's about. It's about being able to make those decisions quickly. So the other thing that we often talk about is how tools aren't enough. And that's because actually when you look at these things change every day, new updates come out. So we are hybrid services and tools. That's because by doing everything automation first, we control our costs and we also ensure that people can reuse any of the code that we write. On the flip side of that, it's human second. So if anyone ever wants to talk to somebody, you can call us just like you would a normal managed service provider. So to get into why we help with people having an evergreen UX and why this matters is actually we have a suite of tools. Okay, so we have our automation layer, we have workspaces for support, we have Flex Analyzer for looking at digital experience and application performance in an environment, and we have our monitoring solution. But today I'm going to focus in on a couple of pieces. One of these is Analyzer. So Analyzer enables us to see every app that a user is using in their organization. It also allows us to see where those apps are connecting to, what the latency of those applications are, and potentially where you could better fit that application to give better performance to an end user. Now, we can also look at the digital experience of an end user where they might be using lots of CPU or using lots of RAM, and then we can look at that and generate events. But we can take that a step further because we can then push that into our automation and then enable maybe a user or a line manager to resize their end user's VDI based on the current performance environment of that device. So as an example, a user runs out of, let's say, CPU or something like that. Give me a second, let me just pull this up. There we go. So in here, we can see that my device here, I've hit 83% RAM usage on a particular date. We can see that actually I was using it all in PowerPoint because I was just pasting a dog video into a PowerPoint. But that can actually generate an alert, which then goes into ServiceNow for maybe their line manager or themselves to be able to modify that workspace and increase that end user's resources. That could be done fully automated. It could be a manual task, or a user could go and do that themselves. We could also look at the latency of an application, and we could say, actually, give that user that application through Citrix or through Parallels or something like that to fix that user's experience. We can look at things and events that happen on that device and automatically trigger custom actions to be able to fix those pieces. So for us, the goal is actually, how can we give you flexibility, but how can we enable a world where productivity is automated and consistent, and we give you the right technology at the right time, in the right place, at the right cost? Thank you.